So my day started off early in the shower, and I was just washing myself down, and I pretty quickly realised that my right hand testicle was enlarged quite dramatically. I was a little bit worried. I was like, I've never seen that happen before, but then thought, it can't be anything too major. I'll just carry on with my day. So that day I was up early because we went and did an 85k mountain bike in central North Island called the Timber Trail. Completed that and actually felt pretty good. Probably wasn't quite 100%, but I put that down to Christmas and Boxing Day celebrations. And in terms of the swollen testicle, I did notice it a little bit on the bike, especially when sitting down. You had to be pretty careful sometimes in some of the gnarlier stuff. How you sat down on the seat, you had to take it a bit more carefully, let's say. So after the ride, drove to Wanganui, to where we were going to be starting our summer holidays. Went and stayed at a friend's place and got the topic rolling, which is always a sort of semi-humorous one. And that they thought I should go to hospital in the morning, and that's what I did. And yeah, I agreed with them as well that it was best to get it checked out because that next morning it still hadn't gone down at all. So I went to the hospital, the emergency department, Wanganui/clinic. And yeah, I was seen to pretty quickly by the nurse, told her my symptoms and a little eyebrow raised a little bit. Then proceeded to wait for the doctor, who asked questions like, is it sore, does it hurt? And I said, nah, it's absolutely fine, it's just swollen. So he proceeded to do ultrasound himself. It's quite funny with these sort of things that they sort of, worry about privacy and all of that, which is good. But I didn't really care about all the windows being closed and the blinds, every window and all of that. I just said, look, just do what you need to do. It's all good. So he looked through. He went through the ultrasound, and I think at this point he sort of knew what was going on, but of course couldn't tell me. So he booked in a full ultrasound down the corridor as quickly as he could, and this sort of got my suspicions going a bit more. That he said you can never usually get ultrasounds on the day, let alone sort of in the middle of Christmas, New Year holidays, and he managed to get one sorted, an hour and a half sort of thing. And then my suspicions rised a bit more when the radiographer spent probably it was a 20-minute exam or so, and she didn't really say boo. So I thought, this is escalating. So then waited around a bit more as you do in a hospital. Doctor came back to me, real nice guy. He sat me down in a private room, closed the door, and he couldn't talk to me. He said, look, I can't tell you. I was like, what is it? Just, give it to me straight. What's happening? I had my suspicions, and he proceeded just to give me a piece of paper with some medical jargon on it. He said, read the bottom line. I did. Didn't make a whole heap of sense to me, but I sort of knew where it was going, and I just asked him, can you please elaborate on this? And he said, look, you've got cancer. And I was like, poof, okay. My reaction is, what do we do next? What's the next step moving forward? And I think he just about fell off his seat because he thought I should have been crying or crying or depressed or some form of reaction, and I didn't really give him much. He said, do you need to see a counsellor? I'm like, nah, what do I need to do right now? So he said, look, we've got to get blood tests sorted and a CT scan to see if there's any spread. I'm like, okay, cool, can we sort that now? And he said, yep, I'll go and work on it. In the meantime, I've been in communication with my wife, who was travelling from out of town. And yeah, he sort of sat us down in a private room, and I let her know straight away straight what was going on, and yeah, she was shocked, of course, but took it really well, like, oh, you know, sort of similar to me really, just like, okay, what do we need to do here? We've got like a newborn baby, a baby on the way at the time, so we didn't obviously want to put too much stress on Lauren around that. So yeah, next we got the blood test sorted. I went down and had a CT, which is basically got to put an intravenous line into your arm, and they fill you full of this like liquid, and it feels real warm, and it's like you're going to piss yourself when you slide through this sort of donut CT scanner. It's real weird, but it's real painless. So we left that hospital with a diagnosis that I had cancer, all the information that was required to pass on to the specialist, and also he managed to track down a phone number for the specialist in Hastings. We couldn't use a specialist in Wanganui because that's not where we reside. So I'd have to say hats off to the Wanganui Hospital. They get a bit of flack, and you always hear about the bad stuff and not the good stuff. Well, this was the good stuff, because this guy he stopped all his lunch, everything, and just got this sorted in the space of 3 or 4 hours. So it was pretty amazing. So next we went out to lunch because it was our wedding anniversary that day as well. So the first year anniversary went to the rubbish dump. And then in this one I got diagnosed with cancer, so from here on out the wedding anniversary is only going to get better, I'm sure. So we sat down and had lunch, sort of processed through it, which was quite good, but it was pretty surreal. I was sort of staring at other people in the restaurant, just, I don't know, just, yeah, your body's definitely not running at 100, you sort of go into a bit of shock, but all the time I was trying to keep really positive about it. Next we went to Pack and Save grocery store to get all our groceries, and that was even almost more surreal, just cruising around holding onto the trolley, watching people put in Coke and sausage rolls and lollies and whatnot into their trolleys, and we're putting all this healthy stuff in, and I was like, oh, why has this happened to me? Why? And yeah, I sort of quickly had to snap out of that, thinking, you know, it is what it is. You know, let's deal with it. It's happening to me. So then from there we went out to our holiday destination, out to the beach, and you know, we were geared up for a couple of weeks of good times in the summer, and I just dropped the cancer bombshell on everyone. So it was a bit of a bit of an interesting start, but everyone was super supportive, and shocked obviously. But you know, everyone just said, you know, it's just a blip in the road. You know, you'll get through it, which is exactly what I was thinking. Also rang my parents at this time, and Mum, who's been through leukemia, had, you know, some really good points, and one of them was to be like really open with people about it, because often people, like, you know that you're fine, but other people around you don't know what's going on and get really worried. So it's best just to be really open to them about it. Now I found that, yeah, it's actually kind of, you feel fine and you know where you're at and you feel good, you're not so worried. I think the people around you actually get more worried and concerned than you do, and it's harder for them than it is for you. So having that open communication is real key, and that's really good now with technology. You can do all sorts of group messages, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video as well. Yeah, so Lauren's parents were out there, and sister and brother-in-law and friends and stuff, and as I say, they were all, yeah, it was really, really good having them all around, so thank you guys. So from there, you sort of end up having 1,000 questions. I didn't really know anything really about testicular cancer, or even what cancer really was. You just think it'll never ever happen to you, so you don't really, being a guy, you don't really need to worry about that. So we so this was later in the week, gearing into a weekend, gearing into New Year's. So I flicked the specialist a text just to see where we were at, and he, immediately reassured me that this is all real solvable, no drama, and come and see me on Saturday afternoon. So we jumped in the ute, 3 hours to Hastings to see the specialist, and he real quickly put our mind at ease. He's a real good fella. And quickly learnt that this form of cancer, it's not the most common, but it is the fastest acting, but it's also one of the most curable. So the chances of not surviving testicular cancer are real slim. Even if you do leave it quite a while. I'd got onto it pretty early, which was good. And yeah, I know he sort of answered all the questions. Like I was like, why has it happened? And he couldn't answer the question. He said, well, we won't know, and we might not never know why it happened. Like all the stars kind of aligned, and boom, you just got hit with it. You're just unlucky at the time. And I try to be, grow my own vegetables, drink out of stainless steel water bottles, and copious other things to try to avoid going into these hospital situations, and still got hit with it. So, hey, I think it all still helps, but, it can happen to anyone. So he went through a few examinations, which weren't too daunting, and a whole raft of questions, obviously. And he pretty much came to the conclusion that there is no option to cure this. You've only got one path here, and that's a downstairs operation. So that downstairs operation is basically the removal of your testicle. Now that wasn't, some people I think would be super alarmed at that statement. At age 35, I wasn't that alarmed really. If I was 20, maybe a different story. Of course you asked, if you cut off one, what's going to happen? Can I still do the business? And yeah, and actually you can. We had some pretty funny conversations with friends and stuff about how your balls work, and do they work together in harmony, and does one support the other, does one not do anything? But they basically just do work together. And if you lose one, the other one takes up the slack, and it's absolutely fine. So what they do is probably not what you think, because what I was thinking is they just cut your sack off and sew it up and move on. But they actually they make an incision through this area, and then they pull the testicle from the inside out. All the tumorous stuff obviously comes out, get rid of all of that, and reconnect the plumbing and sew you up. So the urgency of the situation was pretty much summed up that we're sitting there on a Saturday afternoon. He was very much on holiday with his family here from the UK, and he said he'd operate on it today if there was surgeons available. If there was staff and surgery available, which there wasn't on a Saturday afternoon. So he said, look, we'll get you in there as soon as possible, and I'll let you know. So we drove back to Wanganui. We could have stayed in the Hawke's Bay, but we chose to go back to that base where we were going to be anyway, and we knew there was a whole heap of support there. I didn't want to sort of sit around home and, just mull on it. Wanted to be sort of entertained and distracted by other people, which was really good. So life really just went on as usual. Went and did some fishing, ride around on the bikes and walks, and it was same old. I didn't feel any loss of energy or anything like that. So at this stage, the testicle was actually enlarging. It was actually growing every day, and it was starting to get more annoying by the day. Like when you're walking, had to walk like a bit more like a duck, and like sitting, you sort of noticed it. It was actually really annoying. And the specialist said that some guys just leave it, and they're too worried to talk to anyone about it. And I was all good about it and went in real early and got onto it early, but he said some guys leave it till it's like the size of a football, which I don't know how you could do. But so what I'm really saying here is just give yourself a bit of a check. Like in the shower's a good place. and just anything that's unusual or enlarged or sore or anything like that, just go and get it checked out straight away. It might be nothing, and hopefully it is, and you haven't lost anything. But if it is something like this, you know, you've got onto it early, and there's no shame in it whatsoever. Like, it's just another part of your body. Like, who cares? And the doctors and stuff are all real good. Like, they deal with this all the time. You know, it's their thing. So back at the beach, we were just gearing up for New Year's. At this point, I decided to stop drinking alcohol altogether. I just thought there's no point putting any more toxins or poison. It's a drug into your body when I didn't need to. So I wanted to be, you know, for surgery, I wanted to be 100% fit and fighting and ready to go so I could bounce back from it real quick. So I went through New Year's and stuff for the first time in probably 20 years that I hadn't actually drunk a drop of alcohol. So a few days after New Year's, we got the call up to go to Hastings. We're booked in for surgery. So we drove over and stayed with my parents that night, who were really supportive. So went into the hospital first thing on Tuesday morning. It was pretty carnage in there. They'd gone through their busiest time, I think, ever on record, and there was a little write-up in the paper about it. So basically, got through 3 hours, pretty much was sort of getting admitted, and then basically got rejected out of there. Not rejected, but transferred to another day because they had no space. So you're sort of fasting, and so not eating or drinking through this as well. So you sort of got to go through that process and readjust again back to eating and stuff, which I actually didn't find too bad, just real positive about it, you know, no drama. So a couple of days later, went there first thing in the morning again, did the fasting thing, so you can't eat from that night and drink from early in the morning. Went through actually all whole day sitting in bed, ended up on an IV drip because the day ticked over, saying, you know, we're getting there, it's going to come, we've just got to find space in surgery. Got all the way through to 10:30 at night, and finally they called in and said, look, no, we can't fit you in. The specialist was there waiting that whole day. This shows you their dedication. And said, look, there's a big car crash come in, it's priorities everywhere in surgery, so, you know, have a feed and we'll sort you out in the next, you know, first thing in the morning. So true to their word, first thing in the morning, got all kitted up to go into surgery, had a shower and whatnot, got in my gown, wheeled down there. I didn't find it too daunting. I've never really been through a big hospital situation like this, so I kind of more found it quite interesting. And the nurses and stuff were all really good. So it's basically you just get gassed out and get general anaesthetic, so you don't know what's going on. Wake up in the recovery ward, and I actually had a baby screaming next to me, and I was pretty out to it still at this stage, as she's just sort of waking up. And I actually thought Lauren had our newborn, and this was what fatherhood was going to be like. And I sort of asked the nurse who was looking after me, you know, is that my baby, and is this what fatherhood's like? And she just looked at me like, you are still out to it, like, go back to sleep for a bit. So from there back up to the ward, and they sort of recommend that this is, if you're first thing in the morning, it could be a day in the hospital, you might not need to spend the night. So I went through that day, and as the day went on, I got more and more stomach cramping. And I just thought, oh, it was just because I wasn't moving around. So I went for a bit of a walk down the corridor, and at this stage it's pretty hard to walk, like you're pretty tender. I'd had a few painkillers, but nothing too major. I was just really on some aspirins at this point. I didn't find the actual pain too much, but it was more the movement was pretty hard. But you could sort of shuffle along. And then sort of, I didn't get very far, and I just keeled over into a ball. Like, had the most severe stomach cramps you could ever imagine. I just dropped, and it was the worst thing for the whole thing. I was just in absolute pain. The nurses couldn't really do anything, and so I just sat there in a ball, curled up in a ball, like upside down, half naked in the bed, like just just pushing through it really. I didn't feel nauseous. It was just, yeah, it was horrible. So what I found out the next day, the head nurse said, you know, in her 30 years experience, she'd seen this happen 3 times, and it was a reaction to one of the drugs they gave me in surgery. And yeah, so I won't be having that drug again. So apart from that, I did end up staying another night just because that happened, and the nurses recommended that I did stay another night, and I felt pretty good about doing that, even though I had been admitted and I was cleared to go home that day. So as far as the hospital went, it was actually a really cool environment. Like, I'm kind of not really a hospital person. I always want to stay away from the hospitals. I never really enjoy going into them, but I think just being really positive about it, I actually quite enjoyed it. And it's quite cool. You get thrown in a room with 3 random guys who are in there for urology issues, all different things. So I didn't even know what urology was, and that was the specialist we'd seen. And it's basically the study of your waterworks. So we're in there, and these guys had all sorts of horrible things going on. I just thought my thing was really minor, but they kind of thought round the other way that my thing was major and I needed to get that surgery ASAP. But it's cool talking to these guys. You know, you're talking about farting and everything in the space of 5 minutes, and they're your best mate, and it's kind of really cool. It's sort of like what the real world should be like when you're like communicating with people. You're just at ease and anything goes, and it's all good, and everyone's real supportive for you, and you're supportive for them. And yeah, it was just a really cool environment. Like obviously there's some pain going on and everything, and there's some, you know, there's a few dark times in there, but yeah, I might have just struck it lucky with some really good guys, but I found it a good experience, and the nurses and doctors are amazing, like next level, there for you to help you and to get you better. So next day, I had Laura, my wife, come and pick me up with Dad, and I sort of stumbled, literally shuffled my way out of the hospital. I didn't want to get in a wheelchair, just being stubborn, I guess. And it wasn't too bad. I could walk, but it was pretty slow and a bit painful. So yeah, stayed at Mum and Dad's for a day, and just rested. I think one day cricket was on, so I watched that whole game. It was awesome. And just, yeah, my appetite was pretty normal. Just, you know, just more like grazing things, really, just because you're kind of bored, so you just sort of keep eating. I didn't actually pass any food for about 5 days, which I don't know if that's normal or just me, but I was passing urine fine. The thing with the urine thing I found early on is you kind of can't really feel anything. It's kind of really weird, and you sort of don't have much control. So I just found it was kind of easier to piss outside. Yeah, and like you can't push as well, it just sort of falls out. Yeah, kind of weird, but it all works, so that's the main thing, and that got progressively better as we went along. So in terms of sleeping, it was pretty hard, for especially that first week. I put a pillow between my legs, which really helped. Like, you're kind of waking up all the time, just a bit sore, but the pain wasn't like horrible. They gave me heaps of aspirins, and I didn't take any of them. I was aspirin free after the second day. So then, yeah, after that quick stay, we travelled back to Wanganui again. It was, yeah, sitting in the cars, had a few extra pillows and stuff, but the car ride wasn't too bad. It wasn't optimal. I wouldn't say you'd ideally travel for 3 hours, but it was fine. And then, yeah, basically just chilled out for that first week in bed. Laid flat for probably 80% of the time for the first few days, and that progressively got better. Getting up, I was getting like lightheaded and stuff, but that might be me. Low blood pressure and low heart rate might have aided that as well. And then, yeah, just tried to walk around as much as I could, just to keep the blood moving and keep a little bit active, and not go too crazy. So yeah, that first week, as I say, just got better. Same with the second week. By that stage I thought, you know, you could sit down at a desk and sit at the computer and do a few things and mix it up a bit and walk around a lot more. Walking uphill still was not really so cool. Like, yeah, tried to avoid uphill walking. Getting that support out at the beach again was really, really good. Just getting distracted with talking to people and sort of mucking around on the internet and stuff, you know, sort of passed the time really good. And it was much better than being, you know, like trying to be in a work environment. It would be, yeah, no, that wouldn't be so good. So, yeah, you'd definitely not be going to work in those first few weeks, I'd say. Like, I've got a desk job, and yeah, you might have snuck in the third week. I think I went back on about the fourth week, and you're definitely not doing any heavy lifting for those first few weeks. Like, no way. Like that, yeah, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, if you're doing a lifting sort of job, like, it really is 5 sort of 6 weeks, and then sort of you know, obviously work your way into it slowly. Don't just go and be a he-man. So yeah, the time I got to the third week, I felt like I was just getting up sort of like this, and it just felt like it pulled. I don't think it really did, but what was happening was I found out later, all the fibres were rejoining under the wound, and it, you know, as they join, they just form together small, you know, small little parts, and then obviously if a bit of a pull, they stretch, and it sends a bit of pain. So it was actually, that third week was almost, yeah, it was almost back to sort of the first week in a sort of different sort of way. So I just had to be real careful in that third week what I was doing. But that progressively got better as that week went on. So forgot to mention, in about a week after the surgery, I went back to the specialist, so we drove back to Napier again. We got pretty used to doing this. Back to Hastings again, and he sat us down and said, check the wound out. By this stage, the wound after week 1, it'd swollen up and got some fluid under it, so it was a bit of a bulge sort of thing. And he said that's not that common, but it does happen, and we could drain it, but we don't want to because of infection risk. And it did just sort of sort itself out, and it's pretty tidy now. So he said, you've basically got cancer, which I knew, and after the biopsy of the tumour, they found out it was a seminoma, which was more categorised to, so that was more categorised to later in age of getting this. So they reckon that, you know, the age group sort of 18, 35, 40. So I was on the later end of it with, as I say, a seminoma, which isn't the worst one to get. It's one of the better ones to get, and it's quite, yeah, it's very treatable. So coined on the end of that was also stage 1. So stage 1 means it was contained just to my testicles and hadn't spread anywhere, which was awesome. So it basically spreads, if it's going to spread, it's going to go to your lymph nodes, sort of in your abdomen region, and then up to your lungs. I'm pretty sure it's your lungs. And after that it goes to your brain, which is, I could be wrong, but stage 4. Now that's what Lance Armstrong had. He had stage 4. So he left it that long and was pretty much uncurable, but he managed to fight his way through it. So it's a really good book to read about testicular cancer, which I read when I was younger. But sort of found the cycling really interesting and not so much the cancer, because, you know, it hadn't happened to me. So anyway, I had stage 1, so it was basically saying that the surgeons found no spread. The blood tests were saying there was no elevated markers after my surgery. So before my surgery, they did blood tests, and there's 3 or 4 markers that they check, and they're basically just indicators for potential cancer growth throughout the body. So I had one marker that was slightly elevated, only slightly, and they said they probably wouldn't even pick it up if they were just reading blood test scores. And that's just showing that I got onto it really early. And at this stage, that had dropped back to normal. So, and the CT scan, also the initial scan that I did, was also showing no spread. So it was all looking really good that there was you know, they can't say definitely, but there was no spread, which was really good. So after that appointment, we were discharged from the urology department, and would say we'd be getting contacted from the oncology department, which is the treatment of cancer, in about 6 weeks' time. So that'll be, if you stay tuned to these videos, I'll do another series on that side of the process for myself. So yeah, we're doing I did a golf tournament about 3 or 4 months previous. It was Movember. I had a bit of an alright mow going, and it was for cancer awareness. But basically I just turned up there, drunk person, played golf and had a good time, and never really even thought about what it was for. You hear the word cancer and it's in one ear and out the other. And I guess it's a bit of a guy thing, I guess. And then ironically, like, 3 months later, boom, I've got cancer. And I was like, you just think it's never going to happen to you, and then it happens. And yeah, it's quite funny how life goes, but it does send you a few ups and downs, and you got to deal with them. And that's why I've done this video, is one way of actually dealing with it. And so if you guys have got any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you, and we'll see you on the next one.